right? So that's a thing that you've all kind of heard people say, like, what am I here to do? Well, to me, finding your purpose is accessing your inner genius. Your inner genius is not something that comes by way of your intellect. I firmly believe that your inner genius is only accessed through the faculty of your consciousness. So soul work is a method to expand your consciousness, give you access to all the energetic lines and connected fields that you can either not be aware of and have be plugged up, so to speak, or you can access it in a way where it opens up to you and pours blessings on you. From a scientific angle, it's like having tubes of energy, right, all around you. I think everyone who's here understands the energetic realm and understands that we are all one and connected as one. And to be able to access and enlarge those tubes so that you are not unconsciously sabotaging yourself from receiving what is your birthright. This is, in a short sentence, what Soul Work Evolution seeks to do. We'll move a little deeper into that. So if you look at most wisdom teachings and you look at quantum physics and you look at the field of psychology, which is where soul work is basically the genesis of soul work erupts from, you will find that genius is defined as taking the repetitive cycles of your life and turning them into spirals. As long as a human being, which is where most people in the world live, the 90% live in the repetitive cycles of their life, the same kind of lessons coming in over and over again, unrecognizable in the format they come in, and creating some kind of issue or wrecking ball to that person's life where they are not understanding why they are being exposed to these difficulties. Once you recognize these multiple themes of your life and you are able to turn those cycles into spirals, you are now on the soul work journey. You have now embarked on truly understanding how to actualize your potential. You have now come upon the path that with a guide, you are able to evolve yourself, unlock your great, huge human potential for greatness, and access your inner genius. This is where soul work converges. So most of the education that has been put into this work, all the principles are not things that have simply been downloaded to me as someone who's a mystic or gifted, like I believe probably most of you are, or most of you have recognized you are. This is very much based on 40 years of research and study. It is based on primarily the ancient wisdom teachings from across world religions and the mystical teachings they have. It is based on quantum physics, which I define as the science of spirituality, and it is based on traditional psychology, which does a tremendous amount for a lot of people, but then you tend to hit a glass ceiling sometimes where you know that there's more that you need. You're going to find this Venn diagram represented multiple times throughout this work, and this Venn diagram is a representation of the fact that everything about this work is holistic and dynamic. There's nothing linear about this work. There's not, once you heal, then you are able to go out and become successful. Once you know how to, I hear, once I can live with myself and be happy with myself, then I can be happy in relationship. No, I don't believe that that's the realm of the soul, and I believe that's a limited way to think about yourself in this world. Manifest. So we have all heard so much about manifesting that which you seek to have in the world, that which you want to create, which you have the power to. We are one of the only beings in the world that have been given the same kind of creative power as, if you believe in the great creator or God, as God. We can actually create other humans, we can pull other things into the world, whereas animals are bound by their primitive, instinctual ways. Most of us, though, don't know how to do this. That's one of the issues that we have in the world. I know we've been taught to visualize, we've been taught to meditate. These are great and very, very important parts of the equation. However, there's a little bit more to it than that, or I think we would all be like, flying high and just super, super able to magically create everything that we seek to create in the world. Manifestation is very much connected to what I just referenced earlier, which is that ability to connect with the faculty of your imagination, which lives akin to to your consciousness. Your imagination is the place through which all inspiration comes through. Your imagination is the part of your brain that, if you learn how to access and really utilize beyond what we've been programmed to believe, which is it's just for art, it's just for daydreaming, it's kind of been relegated to a secondary citizen when you compare it to the left brain, rational, math, thinking, science part. Whereas if you think about the realm of human potential and evolving truly beyond anything that you could ever imagine, it is that side of your mind, that part of your cortex, that the more you activate, the more it is connected with your soul. Once you connect that, you will find that everything that you know about the Akashic records, all the information that lives in the world, past, present, future, lives in that space. Your consciousness, your akin to your soul's mind, is what allows you to get to that space. So I'm going to pause for a minute and take any questions you may have before we'll go on to the next two parts of our talk today. If you have any questions at this point, just let me know. Yes?
You said you should turn negative patterns into nice spirals. What does that mean exactly?
So the cycles that keep repeating in most people's lives is the thing that keeps bringing them back into this cyclical sort of reincarnation process, right? So the reason we exist is because we have not completed all the lessons that we individually need to learn as humans. And generally, there's about 4 or 5 lessons, or what I call themes, that keep repeating in a person's life. Generally, in the realm of your marriage, you're making some of the same, or your partnerships or relationships, you're making the same kind of mistakes, or you're finding yourself hit the same kind of walls. And then you decide that the person that you were with, for example, was, I don't know, either too difficult to be with, or not evolved enough, or there was something about the other person that didn't allow you to be who you wanted to be in the relationship. And so you move away, you do some work on yourself, and then you put yourself out there again to be in a relationship again. 9 out of 10 times, if not more so, you will draw into your life, back into your life, another partner in the same format that looks very, very different on the outside, right? And it's not until you have fallen in love or, invested in that relationship that you begin to go, oh my God. And most people don't even go to get to the oh my God stage. They just keep going, right? They don't see that they're like, I'm in the same place. I'm doing the same thing. This is happening again. That kind of a cycle repeats over and over again in 90% of humanity's life, right? Whether it's a relationship with money, where there is a scarcity mindedness that they continue to pull into their life. And you'll see so many people who are kind of these repeated millionaires, you know, they'll like make it, they'll lose it all, they'll make it all, they'll lose it all. Or people who've won, you know, the statistics with people who've won the lottery. Statistics with people who've won the lottery is that I think 87% of those people lose everything and go to a place where they were less fortunate than when they won the money. I mean, these are things that are really sad and very fascinating in terms of, well, what are the lessons that we're here to learn? And are we going to stop and do the ego relinquishment work that allows us to take 1,000% responsibility, personal responsibility, and recognize that we, at some level, are doing what we're doing to pull those energies back into our life. So a lot of ways that the universe tries to wake us up is with the wrecking balls of our life, is what I call them. It's you know, first you get a little sick, or you have an experience with somebody that is really feels like tarring. You know, you go away going, ugh, you know, I feel so yucky, you know. That's a wake-up call. Or you pull in some kind of sickness, or you pull in a breakup, or God forbid, you know, on and on. The negative things that happen in a person's life is usually the stuff that brings us to our knees, right? And it's usually when we are on our knees that we're closest to our highest potential, right? So hopefully that answers your question well. Please.
I work a lot with the quantum, you know, entanglement, I guess you could say, with that consciousness you're speaking of. What is your thought in terms of the self-saboteur that might live in the subconscious? And obviously the subconscious is running the show a lot of the time, you know. So what is the work that you do to kind of, let's just say, neutralizes those frequencies, or how do you want to put it? This is my language, but maybe it's
Absolutely, that's an incredible question, because because I absolutely believe that it's a proven fact that the unconscious mind operates 93% of your conscious thoughts, actions, what you create in the world. And most people are absolutely unaware of what goes on in their unconscious mind. One of the tools that is well known that most people use in order to bridge that gap between the conscious and unconscious is meditation. But the way that soul work looks at meditation, it's not a method to empty the mind, because I don't believe most people can empty the mind. It is humanly impossible. And so most people end up feeling like they're failing, and they get put off and they stop. Meditation for soul work is used as a method to relinquish ego, and relinquishing ego in the form of slowing everything down, slowing down what's going through your mind, so that as you begin to access the gaps between your thoughts and you gain some level of mastery over increasing those gaps, what you are doing is removing yourself from the equation. You are moving into a state of accepting the fact that there are no consequences. You're accepting the fact that there is a natural flow to the universe, that there is something greater, and you're inviting that other in. You are inviting the inspiration that we spoke about just now of your unconscious in. You are opening up your consciousness to be the vestibule between you and the great, you know, source of information in the world. And at the end of the day, the more you do this work, the more you become aware of the fact that we are truly interconnected beings. And so interconnection means that there's, you know, I could just go on and on. It's such an important question, but there's the Reinkoff effect, which is this idea of connecting with the masters that have moved on before us, and pulling from that energetic field when, you know, maybe you're a pianist and you are pulling from this place of Mozart, you know, and you want and part of that energetic being to come down and fuel and work through you. That is you accessing your genius. That's not just borrowed energy from someone else. So all of the entire realm of human potential is a realm that lives on this idea of activating your reticular activating system, which is the connection between your conscious and unconscious mind, and becoming more and more aware, but with 1,000% personal responsibility, right? Hope that answers your question.
Where does the soul reside?
Huh, that's a great question too. And it's a little bit more of a complicated question. As I move on in this work, I will talk about how I define truth, because when you have spent 30, 40 years studying different wisdom teachings and you've gone into the mystical sort of part of these different teachings, most of the place that you access that information is religious doctrine. And so when you move beyond the religious doctrine and you study the realm of the soul, different mystic teachings teach different things about where the soul resides. But the place where I have found most of the convergence of ideas and where the soul resides is that it lives in your blood, which is very interesting. It lives in your blood. And different paths actually deal very differently with that. There is one religion, for example, that always has people show up at sorry for the gruesome image, but like car accidents and whatnot, and they show up to make sure that they actually soak up any blood that's on the pavement or anything if there's a death, so that could be buried with the person, because they believe in that. There are other paths that really don't believe in sort of giving blood unless it's to save a life because of that. So that's also a good question, because most people think that the soul just purely is this like, Casper-like image that lives like, and it does do that too. It is also, it radiates beyond us into our aura. So our aura is very much defined by our soul's existence and the level of our soul. That's how we sort of see different colors in auras. It's where you're living at the moment, and it can change. And then it also moves beyond that to connect us with that realm that I keep talking about, where everything inspiring lives. It's infinite, right? Okay, let's move on. Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
How do you define ego?
So ego that's also a great question, because there's a psychological definition of ego, which means the framework of your mind as you reference yourself as a human being. And in psychological terms, we even say things to the effect of, that person has a fragile ego, so they can't be pushed too hard, for example, to take personal responsibility. So it almost is akin to confidence. For soul work terms, when we talk about relinquishing ego, what we're talking about is understanding and discerning between where our own perception and sort of, behind the scenes motivations live in achieving something or presenting ourselves in the world that is self-serving versus that which we are here to do, which is move into as great a level of service as possible. So, and again, this is defined differently by different cultures as well. For example, Buddhists believe in moving into a state of total egolessness, which means relinquishment of all ego, having no self, they call it. Whereas I as a psychologist, have experienced that, and it seems to be something that doesn't work as well when you want to be in the world, in society, because you tend to find that it is misunderstood in a way where you don't have the self-advocacy that you need to be healthy in the world. So there is a minimal level of knowing that part of you, which is eternal, which is kind of like the personality of your soul, the part of you that lives eternally, yet relinquishing ego to the degree that you can through this discernment process of, and I'll go through it, the evolutionary process of the different stages that a person lives on as you travel the map of soulwork evolution allows you to view your ego through that process and know where you're at. Are you in a place where ego is all encompassing and you believe that you live in a dog eat dog world, or a world where everything is based on scarcity, and if you don't take it, someone else will? Or then you evolve to this place of psychological manipulation, which is soulwork evolution stage 2, where you become aware of the fact that through your intellect and your psychology, you can manipulate people to validate you, to give you things that you seek. And so that becomes a driving force. And then you evolve to this level of the third level, which is where consciousness begins to take over, and so on. So we'll talk about that as we move on. Hopefully that answered your question a little bit. So this is the 4 foundations of soulwork evolution. When you come in to do this work, and you're really embarking on a path that is very much about expanding your consciousness, very much about expanding your conscientiousness, which is your relationship with others and other. You are naturally expanding your integrity, which is integrity with yourself, your word, your place in the world, and what you've come here, how you've come here to actualize your potential and serve. And you are doing ego contraction work on a regular basis. Another example of ego contraction work for the psychological community is called shadow work, where every single one of us in the world have these shards of our personality that have been kind of broken pieces of experiences we've had that we've never healed, that we need to find hiding in the crevices of our mind, pull them up, look at them, heal them, and push them into the whole. The Maslow described an actualized human as someone who has really done the work of pulling all of those shards in and has become whole, which is very interesting, right? So it's not so much how evolved you are or what, it's not defined by what you've achieved in the world. It is defined by how much you have found your own shadow parts, what we call our demons, or those parts of us that we don't want to look at, those ugly parts of us, and we've understood them, healed them, and pulled them into the whole, become fully aware of them. So the way I define consciousness is that it is the part of you that it's synonymous in many ways with the soul. It is the mind of the soul. So the way that the mind of the body exists in our brain, and it gives you access to the fact that you exist. It's the philosophical part of you that, thinks about what Kant and Socrates and Plato and many of the philosophers of the world grappled with is, to be or not to be, or Shakespeare, to exist. Do we even exist? And how do we know we do so? I define consciousness as the mind of the soul, where it is that greater part of you that is accessible the more you develop and become aware of your unconscious. The best way to describe the evolutionary process by expanding your consciousness is through the keyhole analogy. And that's one of the funnest parts for me of seeing people, guiding people through this work. Often they'll come in and they will have many, many different lenses that they are viewing the world through. And these lenses are things that somehow either increase their perception of something negative, decrease something, it takes things out of context, but also they tend to have what I would call blinders. So they are looking through a keyhole, and they believe that what they're perceiving in the world is everything. That is quote, reality. But that's reality. This is that. This person is this way. I was treated this way. And that keyhole they look through, they don't know yet that that keyhole is a limited perspective of the world and reality and what's available to them. By expanding their consciousness through the principles of this work and through, sort of taking the personal responsibility and walking through the fire of expanding themselves into areas that are often very scary, the keyhole enlarges. It becomes bigger. Suddenly, what they look through where they saw, oh, okay, well, this is my life. It's this house and this, street and these people in it, suddenly opens, and they're now seeing, there's a party going on over here that I didn't even see, that I could have been at all this time. I could have been having a good time. And there's all these opportunities over here that I was totally unaware of. And so that gives them access to more personal evolution. And then again, as they evolve through that spiral and through the various stages, the keyhole enlarges and enlarges until the door opens, and as the first door opens, a bigger door opens, and so on until they're really accessing their full, unlimited potential as cosmic beings. Seeds of Perception is another example of part of the method in this work, where everyone has the programming that locks them into their own perception of who they may be. And when you come into this work, one of the things that we seek to do is find that programming and see what actually serves you, what doesn't serve you, what kind of limited beliefs have been put in there. It's very hard to find. We think we know what we're being exposed to, but we often haven't been. And we try real hard to yank out those seeds through the healing work of things that no longer serve you, or perceptions that you had of yourself or the world. Things like money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard to, be successful. Just things that really limit people in their perception of how grand and far they can go. And then we work really hard on, through even hypnosis, planting those seeds on the other side. So once we move through consciousness expansion, which happens all the time, we move into conscientiousness expansion. And conscientiousness expansion connects us with everyone else that is, yes, I know, this is about the ego contraction. I'm moving really quickly through it, so I can leave more time for the Q&A. One leads to the next. So conscientiousness expansion is that big awareness of the fact that we are all connected. And the great thing about that is that we begin to understand that by serving other, we are serving ourselves. So one of the great takeaways from today I want you guys to be left with is that this idea of moving into a place of service is not necessarily just sort of the Mother Teresa format of martyrdom. It's actually very much about the more you're moving towards your ability to move beyond yourself and serve, the more you are actually actualizing your own potential in becoming that which you are meant to be. And ego also gets diminished through that process. Okay, let's go back to Q&A if there's any questions you have on that part.
Would you say the difference between the circular and the spiral is that the circular goes back to the same exact point, but the spiral, you kind of keep moving up, and at points you think you've reached the same point, but then you're actually not at the same point?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly right. So Ferry is someone who's been with me for a long time and knows this work well. And that is definitely one of the things, the pitfalls that we keep hitting when we are doing this work. We tend to find that we are moving on this, sort of wheel where we're working hard, we're arriving at a place where we think we've reached our apex, we feel like we're doing really well, and then we believe we have arrived. We got our yoga teacher certificate, we got that degree, we did something that was like, we are enlightened. And so we sit on our laurels and kind of believe that we are in this space, and we move into kind of not continuing to do our own work. Often we end up at the bottom of that spiral again. So it's this idea of needing to put in all of these different aspects of soul work that allows you to get off that hamster wheel of life and move into this evolutionary journey where you are actually achieving and not working in stagnation. Hopefully that answered your question. So this is the best all-encompassing sort of short view of what soul work evolution is. We talked about the 4 foundational principles, which I refer to as the cause. And the effect of these principles is really absolutely fascinating. As simple as the cause is, you know, it's really spectacular to watch. It's been one of the most fulfilling things of my life to bear witness to, is how as someone expands their consciousness, they are naturally developing this sense of happiness that really breaks them out of whatever they've been in, whatever state of you know, caged by the ego. You guys saw that picture. They break out of that. And many of my clients have come off antidepressants. They are still maintaining their state of joy and sort of this natural energetic flow of happiness. The conscientiousness expansion leads to increased connection and love. So as you increase your conscientiousness and understanding that whatever you're doing in the world is affecting others, anything you're doing, that there's, you know, I always tell my friends that I'm very anti sort of the unapologetic New Ageism that's out there. I don't believe in that. I believe that it's important to know when you need to apologize and not overdo it, but, you know, we are connected to others. So if we have a temper tantrum, an apology is requested, please. You know, if we do something wrong, own it, take responsibility and fix those things, because we are affecting other people in the world, whether it's the way we drive or whether it is just having a simmering anger underneath that is affecting and infecting the people around us. And so by becoming uber conscious of that, you're not only moving into additional service realms, but you are really increasing your connection with others. You're creating a place of safety that others understand that you are not living in this self-absorbed, what about me state, right? The integrity expansion builds on that as well. It's a sense of increased fulfillment and happiness because you're no longer confused about all the rhetoric in the world, all the politics that we are being bombarded with. You have a sense of ethical basics of where you stand, right and wrong, and the fact that you are truly guided by the implications of how you are impacting others in the world. And so this really brings with it a sense of being respected and honored by others and increases both of the other two things. And of course, ego contraction, no one can evolve without doing that ego relinquishment work. And that brings with it peace, the discipline of sitting in meditation, the discipline of truly understanding that we are not fully in control of everything that happens in the world, and to let go a little bit and let other is something that brings tremendous peace and serenity. So what's interesting is that focus on that ego contraction has actually been something that has helped a lot of my anxiety clients come off their anxiety meds and really begin to practice this discipline of, whenever they move into anxiety, practicing some of the things that allow them to understand that they are not fully 1000% in control, and that there are things that will pick up and help them move along, accomplishing great things in the world that are higher levels of serving when they release. So it's this whole dynamic process of healing, growing, serving, and really being bound by those principles and moving from that into a place of just shining in the world and being your full sense, self. This is the map of the work, and it is. I wanted to show it to you guys. I thought about taking it out for today because it's a little bit more complicated, and there's a whole course coming out that's a year-long course that takes you through the journey of soul work evolution, and it's coming out soon. But I really wanted to just kind of give you an idea of these different stages that I had addressed, where when you're residing on a consciousness level at stage 1, you are really focused on your physical awareness. You will find a lot of people who are living in stage 1 are very, very driven by food. They're driven by sex. They're driven by the physical needs of their body. It's very akin to the primitive, more animalistic or caveman method, right? It's that part of you, the lizard brain, that kind of takes over when you're living in this stage. In stage 2, emotional awareness, the characteristics are more about becoming aware of your psychological power and impact, and really understanding that you can move that psychological impact in various ways. You can use it to manipulate others, you can use it to become super controlling, or you can use it to inspire others. You can use it to help others, in a way that is motivational. And so you're understanding that it is your power from a psychological standpoint that drives you. You are we have a t-shirt that says, are you a soul climber or a social climber? Because you can't be both. And that's kind of the idea of being a soul climber. You find that you need to maneuver and keep up with the Joneses, and there's certain things you got to do to kind of be successful in the world. And there's a lot of competitiveness or jealousy that resides in this stage. The third stage is kind of the sunburst stage, where there's you have this opening. It's a place where your third eye really opens and your consciousness comes into effect, and you become aware of the fact that there is so much more that lives in the world beyond our 5 senses. And once you become aware of that knowledge, it's really hard to close that back up and move into a state of just kind of living in your practical existence, and just kind of moving through the world almost robotically. It almost feels robotic. So when that third eye opens and you come into the starburst phase, you understand the realm of consciousness. You've had some kind of a spiritual encounter. You have downloaded something. You've become aware of things in your life and the world beyond your 5 senses. And it activates something in you where you become very hungry, very thirsty for more, because you align with your soul's purpose. You align with that part of you that has come back because it didn't complete what it needed to in the past life. So that's stage 3. Stage 4 is your intellect is honed. Something that I have found as well in my many years of doing this work is that I was never taught how to use my brain, which is an interesting thing to say with all my schooling. No one ever actually sat down and said, think harder. You have thought through this to this place, to this limit. For example, at one point in my journeys, I was like, well, religion is the cause of all the wars in the world, right? But then I was faced with a master who said, well, go beyond that. What's the next step from that? Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? And so I was really taught how to hone my brain and create an inner sanctum akin to a library of sorts where you are once again accessing your inner genius. You're filing things away, you're putting them in the places where they belong, and you are really learning how to use your brain like a computer. You're upgrading, you're releasing things that don't serve you. You are not holding on to things and problems that you're not acting on and doing something about. So this is the part where you take the physical faculty, this body that carries your soul, and you learn truly how to work with it from a place where you are maneuvering and moving through your life with everything you've got to offer. The stage 5 of your soul work evolution is when you have truly gotten a hold of your ego. You understand where it is. You see where it is working from behind the scenes to take over. You know when you are being, in any way, shape, or form, prodded or pushed by the ego, and that is trying to step forward. You know when jealousy is coming in, you know where you're being competitive, and essentially you've done enough work so that, you've made your ego your bitch. Forgive the language, but that's the only way you can really refer to this part of us that just kind of works in a very sinewy manner. Number 6 is where your extrasensory perception really has been developed in a way where you're utilizing that ESP to connect with others. Every single one of us in this room have the ability to see energy, to feel energy, and to work with energy. And actually, I've never shared this publicly, but the story I told you of being on my dirt bike in the Himalayas was me on my way to go meet with a hidden monk who spent the next month actually teaching me energy dynamics. If you think about this and you're able to open your mind to it, the ability to moderate and work with energy is what gives shaman the ability to shapeshift, which has been witnessed by many. It is the ability that has given the Buddhist monks, the Lungkompo runners, the ability to essentially, it's like flying, but they call it fast running, where they touch the ground and they travel large distances in short periods of time. The ability to understand how energy works and that we live in a world that is made of energy, and the ability to operate with and work with that energy is high-level soul work type of work, where once you've arrived there, you are really working with these different energy dynamics to move yourself into that next state of your operations and living. And finally, it is where you are fully aware of the fact that you are living in a world where there is more than us. We can be our own goddesses, but we are not the goddess. We can live in our own worlds as being some of the most important elements of our universe, but there is other that exists. And to become aware of that collective unconscious, to become aware of creator mentality, to accept that there is more to life and existence than us in the center, is something that brings the entire thing together and actually puts you in the center in a way where you shine most brilliantly. Thank you so much. This is my presentation. I'm open to Q&A. Any questions? Yeah.
Can you only live in one stage of the 7 stages at a time?
Great, absolutely great question, and I was going to kind of talk a little bit about that with this. This is exactly the reflection of the fact that no, we are extremely dynamic beings, and we have many different soul parts. There are parts of us that live in this life as we exist now. There are parts of us that have completed their incarnation and have moved on to the next realm of their existence. And so we are much more complicated, beautiful, dynamic beings than we realize if you look at it from a mystical standpoint. But even as the person that we are in this life here today, we can be oscillating between these different stages at any given moment. We can have a really bad day and just be in stage one, where our head, I mean, I had one of those days the other day where my head was, I was thinking about this and I was like in my fridge, just like, cake, I need cake, you know, just like that was the only thing that could calm me. And then there's places in your life where you're just like, you're in this place where you can feel your sense of soul and you can sense that you're just connected in a way that is beyond you. And, you know, in the stages 5, 6, 7, 8. And so you oscillate. So the point is the percentages. The point is how much discipline you employ to live in one of the higher stages and how aware you are of where you're at. And most importantly, the fact that there's a map now that can tell you that. There's a map that can guide you through these different stages so that you can look at yourself and go, oh, well, I'm operating at stage 1 there. You know, I'd like to be there and I'd like to respond to this situation from stage 3 or stage 4 or higher. So great question. Thank you. Yes.
So, have you heard of heart math?
Part math?
Heart
Heart map. No, I have not.
Heart math. They've done some studies and they found that the heart
Oh.
gets stimuli whenever you get stimuli, and then communicates with the brain. And
Oh,
brings
yes,
it
yes,
back down
yes.
to the heart.
Yes, of course, yes.
So I was just wondering how that.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, one of the things that I have learned from that, I believe is probably similar studies, is that the heart actually has brain cells on it. So because the heart has brain cells on it, even more of a reason why the entire holistic model of operating off intuition becomes so incredible, and how all dis-ease in the world comes from a discord within you of not actualizing your potential. So we have brain cells in our gut as well. Thinking brain cells in our gut. So, you know, when there is something out of line and we get IBS and we have, you know, all these other issues that come, they come from our inner conflict of recognizing the grandness of the humans that we are and not really having a path to access that, right? So, yes, amazing comment. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes.
So you were saying at the beginning of this lecture about traveling when you were young to dangerous places and you don't have to do that. And I went through that a lot too back in my 20s, but I'm feeling the call now that there's experiences that can only be had in other countries. And what's your perspective on that? If you feel called so strongly, but you're not in your 20s anymore and you have to, it would be better to just stay here, but you're being so called. What do you suggest?
Yes, and look, I believe travel is literally the life that runs through the veins of my, you know, life, you know, and I'm a very avid traveler, and I still do a tremendous amount of traveling, but I no longer find myself willing to die to get to that master, to that next master, or spending a year in an ashram in India, and you know. The point is that was my journey, and it was incredible, but I also found that had I had this guidebook while I was having that journey and I understood what it was exactly that I was seeking and looking to actualize and what the next step along that path of the mountains and valleys of my life are, it would really, really limit the dark nights of the soul that I went through. You know, where I did feel disconnected and I was like, where are the answers? You know, where's my guide? Where's my next teacher? And, you know, I'm incredibly fortunate in that for one reason or another, we're all born gifted, right? You look at a baby and they can see your aura. It's very obvious that they are kind of 1 foot in this world and 1 foot from the world they came from, right? And they are able to feel and connect with things that are programmed out of them. All of you, every single person in this room has that extrasensory intuition, perception, ability. It's been programmed out of us. Somehow that didn't happen to me. So it was my curse and it was my blessing. It was very much something that being able to have access to all that really was overstimulating. I mean, just the fact that I'm standing up here today is like, woo, major accomplishment for me, you know, because I could feel, sense, and see a lot more than I'm able to sort of block out. But you all have access to that, right? And when you have that calling, and you don't have the guidebook to understand, well, like, how do I ground that? How do I use that? How do I apply that to the next step? What is the next step on my journey, right? And you're constantly in search of the next teacher or mystic or master. So I don't believe that. I believe travel really is something that brings with it great quantum leaps in your consciousness expansion. It really does. It takes you out of yourself, out of your environment, and exposes you to things that are extraordinary, right? But I also feel that being able to be grounded and stay put and learn and evolve where you are in this moment at this time is equally as important. Sure.
Speaking of dark nights of the soul, how can soul work, evolution help us in things like marital problems?
Well, I almost feel like I should ask you to come up here and talk about that. May I share a tidbit about your story?
Feel free.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So this is one of my clients who's graciously here to support me, and we met when she was separated from her husband for 4.5 years with 5 years and 3 little kids. And when we met, both her and her husband said, absolutely never will we come back together again. Like, never. That'll be hell on earth. And after about 1.5 years of doing this work, they are back together again, very happily living under the same roof, raising their kids together, and married. So how does soul work do that? It is the path, right? The path towards, if you weren't meant to be with that soulmate, if you weren't with the right person from the beginning and it was the wrong, then that wouldn't have happened. But it guides you to the place you're meant to be and the person you're meant to be. And thankfully that happened to be the person that you were with. You both just needed to learn how to not operate in power dynamics, which is very, stage 2, and how to operate in a more conscientious field, and also find your way back together and understand how the service of your spouse is evolving you and allowing you to get to where you want to get.
My husband and children and myself are indebted to this work for the rest of our lives.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. You're incredibly gracious, as all of you are, and I'm so grateful. Barbara, Jessica, all of you, Erica, thank you, Audrey. Sorry, please.
Lately in my meditation practice, these words are coming up. Do some people have no soul?
Oh,
I don't know where it comes from, but lately it comes as like,
wow.
so I'm doing the research. Is it true or not? I feel like more people with the ego base, they have maybe no soul, or I don't know. Pick that up.
Yeah, that's, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I do believe that there are people that can tar their soul to the degree where its shine is no longer like apparent for somebody to connect with, right? So layers of just, and it's all low vibrational frequency. It's not just being, a lot of people think of that as like evil. It's not necessarily evil. It is years of suffering and just living in darkness and living in lack of joy that will disconnect you on the vibrational frequency scale from the highest vibration that lives in the world, right? And so when you live in that for a long time, there is so much like tarring that begins to build up over time that maybe the shine, they are maybe disconnected from that true greatness that they still possess. But I don't believe that they have no soul. Maybe that's what you're picking up on.
Something, or, you know, I'm trying to find answers because I'm starting doing more soul work or
Mm.
testing them all the
Well, I love that. I love that. Yes.
I would like to comment that this is what you believe at the end of the point. If you want to have a soul, you have a soul. If you don't want to have a soul, you don't have a soul. Because many beliefs in the world, many ideas, but it's what you really believe is what is going to give you the power to do your work. And that's my point of view. It's not because everybody has different beliefs, but what at the end is my belief that's going to give me the power, because I can take her belief and that's going to, but I have to choose it, and that gives me power.
And absolutely. And your belief is what you will also manifest in the world. So your manifestation, even beyond this life, is determined by your belief. So this is absolutely true. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So as you know, I'm like very fascinated in the trauma in our lives that we go through and how it can either launch us into increased awareness and consciousness or keep us in that low level of vibration. And I think it's really interesting that when we are in our lowest points in our life, we are the closest to our potential, like you said. But it feels so far away when you're so in that fear space.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you can answer this, but like, I remember you saying this the other day, it's almost like you need to just reach up and grab, right? But it's like it feels like it's a simple thing, but people struggle with it so much. So it's like, how can you get there, I guess, or how, does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's also a great question following from what we just said, actually, right? Because what's interesting is that when you're passionate about the realm of the soul, like I am, one of the things that you spend a lot of time studying is different belief systems on what happens to the soul after life. And across the board, and you know, I didn't define this earlier in the presentation, but my belief of truth, right, like the thing that I will bring into this work, is where the major wisdom teachings of the world converge. So if I have come across something and studied something that, you know, a shaman on the top of Machu Picchu, right, in Peru, has brought into this world and sensed in terms of cosmic powers and what their energy holds. And I'm finding the same teaching in, for example, Kabbalah, and in Christian mysticism and Catholicism and things that are in the mystical teachings behind the work, then for me, right, that becomes truth. I can firmly take that into my work as, again, not my own belief system or principle, but something that I can probably, you know, bet on pretty confidently, you know. And what I have learned in response to your question is that whatever your belief system is, like truly from a heart-centered place, is the thing that will move into your beyond your life with you, and that you will be, you know, if you believe in sort of God, then you will be tested, right, in how firmly you believe in that belief system. And if you don't believe in God, then you are actually creating the thing that you believe in terms of what lays beyond the realm of the soul. So when you're on your knees and you're in that very low vibrational frequency and bad things happen to good people, and you have a very firm foundation, a belief system that's anchored in something greater than you, that is where most people have their epiphanies. That's where most people have their, you know, like I talked about in my story. I mean, I was literally either going to like fly to my death by falling off that cliff, or I was going to be dinner for like Himalayan lion cats. I mean, that's just what truly. And it was the only thing that got me through was my understanding that one step in front of the other. I'm here for a reason. Thank you again. Thank you so much. if you guys connected with this work, we are going to be outside answering questions. We have the raffle that we're going to do, and there's products at the back of the table that are for sale at cost price. I'm not making any profit on it for anybody who wants to just sort of take a little bit of this inspiration home with you. So feel free to peruse and talk. I think we've got the room for another 15 minutes, and then we're going to move outside to the table in the hallway if you are still looking for us. But we've got courses on offer, and you can find me in the handouts that you've gotten as well.
Would like to put their raffle ticket in?
Yes. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Yes.
I don't know much about it, but I'm trying to make that happen. Not yet though. It hasn't happened yet. I'm working on it. So be in touch and I will look into it. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you. I love looking at you and you're very engaged and I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're doing the raffle drawing now. Oh, we've got one more. Okay, let's go ahead and put that in here. Also, I have written a book, Moon Star Child, that is a very cute, fun story about this entire journey. And I've written the book. My mother is the illustrator, and it's an incredible art book. If you guys would like to peruse, look at it. She's here to sign autographs for anybody who's interested, and that's also at the back. Yes, incredible artist and artwork. Okay, here we go. Drum roll, please. Yes. All right. Clara Malka. Clara Malka is she not here? Oh, okay. So we can pick another. Clara Malka. Okay, that was the first one. Let's see. Another drum roll. All right. Let's see. Who's this? Jennifer Charles. Woo! Awesome, Jennifer. Jennifer totally deserves it. Jennifer is a volunteer here. See, when you serve, the universe rewards you. I love that. That's great. Okay. Lovely. Let's. Now that I took my shoes off, I took my heels off. No.
Would you mind staying for a picture?
Should I keep this on as well?
I'm just taking a bunch of pictures.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Try one of the podium. Got it. Can you point at the... Got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lana. Oh. Thank you. And I have to, I have to say that this would not be possible any of this without Debbie's work on creating the t-shirts. She did that single-handedly. Okay, and the mugs. Fairy's complete attention to detail with the editing and helping me, put them. These are my clients, okay, and Farnoosh's help in every regard possible with her helping Debbie and helping Fairy and helping me. Thank you guys, really. And Mia has become my business manager, so she's like everything. So thank you.
Merci. Thank you so much. Thank you for